All right, so let's get into it. So let's go into the game. And here we are at our usual practice, midday. Paul Ricard selected. Our trusty Nissan GTR Godzilla is selected. Clear weather, and let's go in. It's it's an interesting track, Paul Ricard. Why? First of all, why they're doing the tests over there? Well, of course, it has something to do with SRO being, French, but also because it really is a track that has a little bit of everything. It has a very, very long straight. Actually, it has the longest straight of the whole championship, and so you need lots of aerodynamic efficiency, and so the BOP organizers can judge how efficient the cars are in terms of drag and downforce. It has long, fast turns. It has hairpins. It has chicanes. It has pretty much everything. So, and not only that, but it also has very, very long escape and everything outside the track is still asphalt. And so it's also very safe for the teams to try different things, and also for new drivers, and as you know, in GT3 we also have gentleman drivers, to try the cars for the first time, for example, and learn how to judge the cars. So, ciao Stefano. Okay, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. All right, so here we are. Start-finish straight line of Paul Ricard, and here where we are going to start our circuit walk. So, this start-finish straight line is not that long. I mean, in any other circuit it would have been pretty long, but here it's the second longest straight of the circuit, and it's still good long circuit. So the first thing that you need to stay careful is that, as you can see, normally you should go over the right side of the road for the proper racing line. But as you can see, we also have on the right side of the road the pit lane exit. All right. So drivers that have just done their pit stop, they will exit from here, and they don't have much room to go. So they will cross your racing line. So I do advise you to not go instantly over here, but stay a little bit in the middle, just to be safe, and also to help people that exiting the pit lane. Once you're over the pit lane exit, you can cross, of course, and go over here. Now, our first reference point for braking for this mid-speed left to right chicane is the start of this outside curb. Okay. Now this is the first reference point, so you start braking at the start of the of this curb. But as you get better and better and better, and you will see that it is important to understand how to enter and turn in the car for this first chicane, you will brake later and later and later, and you will start to brake at the end of this curb. So usually when I have some, I'm getting better with the car and the tires are fresh and whatever, I start braking at the end, or even just a tiny bit later than the end of the chicane. And yes, you can brake that late. Now, as you can see, the problem with the chicane is that the road is far from flat. It's really very strange road. So let's see what happens here actually, because it really is very particular. So as you can see, you are arriving in a downhill, slight downhill. It seems to be straight, but instead it is a slight downhill here, okay? And then it goes, just as you are finishing your braking zone, it goes uphill, okay? It goes a tiny bit uphill, and that helps you to make your braking zone even shorter. And then you have some camber that helps you to turn in, and you can see how the road is inclined towards the inside. But as soon as you arrive at the apex here, okay, and it is important to get as close to those sausages as possible. Don't overdo it. You're gonna, get a penalty, and you won't be able to get a valid lap. You are going to invalid your lap. So don't overdo it, but you need to cut as good as possible. As soon as you cut, the road goes the other way around. So at the exit of the first part of the chicane, you go off camber. And that will make your car slide very wide around here. And then for the next turn, you are on camber, but you do have to go up on this curb, which seems to be very low, but instead it is quite high. It is quite a high curb. It is a double curb here. This thing is strange. It will make your car bounce around, and it will destabilize your car. So it is very important to make as good line as possible. Let's have a look at what we can do. So again, you go inside, you try to cut here. That's why this small cone here disappears right after the first lap, because obviously this is exactly where the apex is, and everybody just takes it and eliminates it instantly. And as you can see, the car already jumps around. Those curbs seem flat, but instead they are quite bumpy. Okay, your car will slide towards the outside, but try to not overdo it, so you don't want to find yourself somewhere around here, because then you won't be able to enter the next part, so the right turn of the chicane fast enough. So you really want to try and remain at the exit of the first left turn somewhere around here, so that you can start cutting again and go up the chicane. Again, don't cut too much here. Why? Because again, this the speed is medium. It's not a slow chicane, and you are arriving here in third gear, and that means this curve that seems low, it is instead quite high, and it will make your car jump. It is also bumpy. It will destabilize your car. It's not a big deal. You can control it. It's not a big deal in terms of controlling the car, but the more the car jumps around here, the more the traction control will interfere and stop you, and you will lose traction and forward movement and acceleration, and so you will exit slower. So try to not overdo going over the curb right around here. I usually try to keep the car somewhere around. Let's see if I can make it proper. So you go somewhere around here, okay? So don't overdo it. Don't go. You could go even almost over here, but don't overdo it. And it's also very, very important to try to go on the accelerator and help your car rotate with the curb and accelerate out of it. Because if you do it properly, the car will rotate from the curb, and you will be able to exit flat out. If you don't do it properly, then the car will just go into understeer, and then you're gonna have issues exiting. You will be forced to lift, and as we said, lifting at the exit is the worst thing you can do in terms of lap time. Right, so the exit. Here at the exit, I need to show you something, because it's the first time we will see about them, and it is important to instantly understand how track limits work in Paul Ricard. It is a particular car, and it has particular rules about track limits. Well, first of all, the track limits, as usual, is everywhere in Assetto Corsa Competizione. Curb is track. You might have heard usually that no, the track is until the white line. That might be, true for single-seater racing or stuff like that. But usually, for GT3 cars and touring cars, the rules that might even say yes, white line is the track, and you have to have at least two tires on the white line. But usually they do allow you to go over the curbs without problems, even with 4 wheels. All right. So in Assetto Corsa Competizione, the curbs are still track, and you shouldn't go. You could go with 2 wheels over the curb and outside of the curb, so you could arrive somewhere around here. So you could do something like that, and you won't be penalized, okay, as long as the other part of the car is still on the curb. But obviously, you don't want to get out so much over here because there are the sausages. And then there is another reason. As you can see, in all around the track, in the most special turns, so as you can see, there are those kind of billboards, flags, I don't know how to call them. They have a name, but I don't remember, honestly. But there are those things here that are flexible. Obviously, a car can go over them. No big deal, except some bad sounds. And you have to get your car inside the track with all 4 wheels, so over the curb at least, before those signposts here, before those cones. Let's call them flexible cones, markers. Let's call them markers. Thank you, Kirill. Thank you, mate. So before those markers, you need to get your car up. So what happens here is you could even be outside like this, okay, no big deal. And you won't get any penalties. You could even be even worse than that. So you could be like that, okay? But before those markers, you need to get your car inside. That's the rule. That's what also in real life, Paul Ricard, SRO, that's what they're watching about. Okay, so those markers are very important all around the track at Paul Ricard. Okay, so this is important. Now, why you usually get easily an invalidated lap at the exit of this turn? That is because, obviously, at the exit, you are not exiting somewhere around here, but you do exit right at the markers practically. So if you do the proper line, your exit point brings you as wide as possible right on the market. So you cannot really go outside on that turn. And obviously they have placed the markers there for a reason. It's a mid-speed turn. You can, do things properly. So they just put the markers there to make you avoid going very wide. All right? Okay, so let's move on from here. As I said, as soon as possible acceleration from here. This bit, as you can see, goes up, goes down, and then goes up again, and then goes downhill again. Hey, Francesco. Yeah, it is a quite difficult, very, very technical track. All right, so let's go down. As you can see now, the road goes downhill, and now this 150 marker with also the first white line is when you want to start thinking about braking, but that's not your braking reference point. Now, your braking reference point has to be before the 100 marker and the second white line. Again, never get as a reference point a marker that it's very easy to destroy from other players, because obviously if this missing, then you will miss your braking zone. So your reference point has to be the second white line, right? So once you know how to brake on this circuit, and you feel properly in harmony with your car and everything, then the braking reference point is at this second white line, maybe even a tiny bit later. But obviously, the first time you're gonna approach this track, start braking before that. So I would start braking somewhere around here, and then slowly, start braking here, and maybe a little bit extra over here if I can do it. This is quite particular as a braking zone. Again, as you can see, it goes downhill, so your braking zone will be longer. Again, strange things happens with the camber. There's something that you need to understand into this turn-in. If you arrive over here after the 50 and you start turning in, okay, and you feel understeer, then you might keep on, going hard on the brakes, trying to slow the car down. But the trick here is to release the brakes as soon as possible and bring as much speed as you can, because you can bring a lot of speed inside this turn, and start cutting, but not overdoing it with the steering wheel. You'll see that by getting off the brakes here, because you are downhill, you're going downhill, and being a little bit smooth with the steering wheel, you see that you can bring a lot of speed inside this turn, and you can cut also quite a bit. I've seen many people's arriving here like this, okay? So your car is positioned like that, and you feel a lot of understeer, and you keep on braking, and you try to get into the turn, and it doesn't work, and everybody's like, oh, this turn it's terrible, all right? But instead, what you need to do is release the brakes and cut quite a bit. You will enter this turn in third gear with quite a bit of speed, and even though it is bumpy, okay, don't worry about it. Go here, go inside, release the brakes, and you will see that, yes, it is bumpy, but the car is quite safe, quite stable, no big deal. And then, instantly after going inside without braking, you need to go into the brakes again. You need to brake and gear change, downshift down a gear to second gear, or first, depending on your car, because some cars have longer gears. On the Nissan, I have to go from third to second. Now you need to go over this curve. You need to position your tires somewhere around here, practically. So you need to be not over this, but inside here. Okay, this is the best solution. And the problem here is this curve is really bumpy. And if you stay over here, which is also, it is also stepped. You see, this curve is stepped like that. So if you stay over here, it's going to be even bumpier, and this is really, really bad. You need to position your car somewhere around here. Now, even here, the track gets a little bit bumpier. You need to... it depends. Now, Tortellini said something that I was about to say. So I find that it helps me to go over this curve like that. Okay. But also, if I do it wrongly, and if I go over here, then the whole car will start, as you can see, jumping around, and it's bad. Some people prefer, also very, very fast drivers, to stay just a bit outside of this curve, somewhere around here. Okay? So they don't go over that curve that much. They just, stay like this. Okay? So I don't know, honestly. Try it. I always feel safer and faster if I go over that curve. If you think that it's faster for you going outside the curve, it depends also how your setup is, how your car is set up, and what kind of car you also drive. Also, that depends. Try it. I don't know what to tell you, honestly. I don't know what the best solution is. I prefer to go over that. But then again, honestly, I don't know. So you have those two possibilities. Now, whatever you do, what you need to do really is find yourself the exit somewhere around in the middle of the road. Don't go too much at the left because it's going to ruin the next turn, and it is very important. And I usually downshift down to the first gear for the next turn. It's a very slow turn, and it is a quite important turn because it's easy. As you can see, the whole turn is completely off camber. Okay, it's really strange. I mean, this track seems flat, but it's so technical. It has, you see, it seems that it has the correct camber, and then you go at the apex of the turn, and as you can see here, right, it is not proper camber anymore. It's off camber, so it is quite a difficult turn. Now, here again, I cut as much as possible, but again, it's very important to not get the sausages, and you know about that. And then comes the technical part. So you have to exit somewhere around here, and you upshift one turn, and you need to get into this turn that it's really, really strange. So let me show you this turn from above, because otherwise, honestly, I don't know how to explain to you what is happening over here. So let's go as high as possible. So, I mean, look at that. I mean, who really decided that this turn should be like one apex here, a different apex here, another apex here? I don't know, honestly. I don't know what to tell you. Yes, I think now you can see the mouse again. So again, you are coming from here. You have to go like a very early apex around here, and your speed will make you go outside again. And you need to wait a little bit with the accelerator, and that you go over that second, as how can I say, kink of that turn. So practically, let me see if I can fix that. So let me see if I can get this. So practically, you need to arrive somewhere around here, okay? And then you start going outside, and you need to wait with your accelerator, and somewhere around on the second kink, you can start accelerating and rotating the car again. You will end up very wide somewhere around here, but you will have enough grip to go again, practically at the exit of the turn. This is your exit, and this is where you need to be for the next turn, because obviously for the next turn you need to be somewhere around here. So it really is very, very particular turn. So let's go inside and see if we can understand how to do it. Okay, so practically you go inside in something like second gear. You need to raise your foot and wait, because you will end up wide. Okay, try not to end up very, very wide, because otherwise you won't be able to recover your line for the next turn, because the next turn is very important. It is also very important to not overdo it. You need to start accelerating again, back on the accelerator, as soon as possible. I usually watch this Audi Sport billboard here, and once the Audi Sport billboard is somewhere around in the middle of my car, I try to accelerate again and rotate a little bit the car. Don't overdo it with the accelerator. Don't overdo it with oversteer, because the more you oversteer to rotate the car, the more the traction control, stops you. You need to be very smooth here. Accelerate with the car while the car still have traction. Don't try to go inside too soon. Just try to help the car find traction and find also front end grip, because the sooner you accelerate here, it's all speed that you gain during this phase. You need to accelerate as hard as possible, because the next turn exactly here is flat out, all right? So this one is flat out, and obviously the sooner you have accelerated before, the faster you go in here. And why is that so important? Because as you know, with this flat out turn, we go directly on the very, very long straight of Paul Ricard. This is the longest straight of all the championship, very, very high top end speeds, and obviously a great opportunity for slipstream overtakes and so on. So I do clip the curb on the inside. It does depend on the car, but I do clip the curb on the inside. With some cars, especially with mid-engine cars, sometimes you will notice that if you tend to try to, bring the car inside, you get understeer, because you are flat out on the accelerator, you are accelerating as hard as possible, and you try to, give it as much, steering wheel as possible to keep the car in, and you end up very wide. So the trick here is that you don't need that much of steering wheel input. You need less steering wheel input, but it has to be at the correct point beforehand. So sometimes, let's see if, I hope I won't get disqualified. So if you end up like here and you start to go in, you will need lots of steering wheel. You need to have start your turning much sooner, and at that point you will arrive here like that. So it's all on the driving line you get before arriving at the apex of this turn. Now, at the exit of this turn, you can abuse the track limits a lot. This is one of the places that you can really abuse the track limits. Here you can really go outside. Now, obviously, remember, if you go outside like this, you might lose too much time. But it is something useful if you're following a car in race, or if a car follows you, or maybe it's a wet track, whatever. So don't worry about that. You can go flat out and even go really, really wide like that. No big deal. Why? Because again, we have those pointer marks here. Okay, just make sure to go back into the track before those marks here. Okay, it's very, very important. So, as I said, again, once more, you can really abuse, you can go really, really wide over here. That is why there are also so many tire marks at the outside of this turn. But again, you need to be inside the track, okay, before those marks here, okay? Right, now, from here on, it's very simple, obviously. You just have a very long straight, and you just keep your foot down and upshift all the times, but you still can gate a little bit. I've seen many people, doing like that, then coming back again, then doing like that. Now, obviously, if you're trying to, break the slipstream of a car behind you, I can understand that. But if you're alone, then it is very important to look as far ahead as possible and try to get, if you keep looking here, as many people do this mistake, they look in front of them very, very close to the car, you will at the end up doing strange trajectories like that, because you try to, you watch here and you try to stay here. So don't do that. Watch very, very far away and just point like this, okay? This will make you go to the smallest amount of distance. You will travel the smallest amount of distance possible. So just, watch as far as possible. We arrive now at one of the fastest turns of the whole championship. Pretty much all the cars arrive here way above 270 kilometers per hour. And it's a very high speed. It's very high speed. Some cars even manage to do 280 or even a little bit above 280. And with some help from slipstream, everybody can do over 280. Some cars even 290 kilometers per hour. So it's really, really very, very fast approach on this right-hander, which is also extremely fast bend. So this bend right here is not only you arrive like, at 280 kilometers per hour, but then you just tap the brakes, maybe down a gear, and in fifth gear at something like 250, 260 kilometers per hour. And it's not that it is so much of a long turn. So you are obviously always on the limit of your grip, and you really have to be very precise, and it really is a very difficult turn. So let's see how we can approach this turn. So first of all, where to start? Brake and downshift. You just, here at the 100 meters, it's the first reference point. Now, here's something very important. This is also true for real drivers, and this is what happens actually when gentleman drivers or first-time drivers arrive to this track and they have their first approach with a high downforce car like the GT3 cars. All right. So what you do? Sorry. So what you do here is, even in real life, everybody says, brake soon. Brake as soon as possible if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know what to expect. Brake as soon as possible, get your speed down, downshift the gear, and go into the turn on the accelerator. Go into the turn on the accelerator, and in particular in real life, they will tell drivers, go into the turn on the accelerator, and even if you feel that you are understeering or that you're losing, you obviously you're going to understeer, don't lift your foot from the accelerator. Just keep your foot on the accelerator, understeer, go wide, don't worry about it, do not lift your foot, because if you lift your foot, I've even heard some people saying, some engineers saying to the gentleman drivers, you're going to die. Why they're telling this thing? Because this turn is extremely fast. We're talking about over 250 kilometers per hour, and those cars are extremely pitch sensitive. You all know that by now. And if you lift, obviously you're gonna, start quite an oversteer situation from the car. Especially some cars are more, especially rear engine or mid-engine cars are more sensitive to that. And it's one thing to experience this behind the monitor, that that even if you crash, no big deal. It's another thing to experience high oversteer, yaw angles at 250, 260 kilometers per hour in real life, right? So when you experience something like this, usually people will do wrong things. And one of the bad things you could do is, sometimes even oversteer way too much to catch the drift, because oversteering too much to catch the drift will send you towards the wall at 240 kilometers per hour. And even though there's still a very big safe zone outside this turn, and it's all asphalt, it's still 240 kilometers per hour. So I've heard real life race engineers and driver, coaches telling new drivers, don't lift your foot. It's better to understeer. Go wide. Don't worry. be safe, because otherwise you're gonna die. it's really the first time I heard it, it was quite fun. All right, so as we said, start at the 100 meters. All right. Here, this is your white line over here. Brake and go inside the, so brake, downshift to fifth and go inside on the accelerator. Once you get better and better and better, then your reference point is somewhere after the start of the curb around here, and before obviously the 50 meters white line again around here. Again, you have also another mark over here. This is also another one. As you can see, there are plenty of marks here. Why? Drivers need them. Depending on the car, you can brake later, sooner, whatever, and all those little marks can help you understand when to brake and what to do. So we had the 100 meter, we had another one here, you can see another one. We had the start of the curb here, another mark over here, another mark, second mark here, a third mark here before the 50 meters, and then the 50 meters. There's so many marks around here that you can take and they can help you to define your reference braking point and also your turning in. So you could start turning in here, or you could start turning in at the 50 marker, and so on. So there's no excuses here. You really have many reference points. Just experiment. Again, depends a lot on the car that you have. Find the best reference point that works for you. And once again, it is important to understand that if you have issues, don't try to fix them a lot with the setup, because obviously you're gonna ruin the car all around the otherwise very technical track. Try to change your driving style around here, so brake a little bit sooner, but go into the turn with the correct speed on the accelerator. Now, another thing that will really help you is to go over the curb over here. Again, the tire marks that you find around the track, they are not, random. They are here to help you. If a curb has a lot of tire marks, there's a reason why. And obviously we don't just took the liberty to put them there. We put them there because we saw on real life that there are marks over there. So again, going over this curb, it is bumpy, it is a bit of a mess, but it rotates a little bit the car right at the point where the car starts having understeer. So this helps you to rotate the car, and it gives you the correct line to go through this very, very fast turn. Again, you have both cones and markers for the apex. Now, here's another point where you can really abuse the track limits, and once more, you can watch any real-life video on YouTube from Paul Ricard racing, and you will notice that everybody, especially GT3s, ends up going really, really wide over here, completely out of the track. Okay. This is the reason why they let this very, very fast bend here. It's a very exciting bend, and the reason is that there is all this space at the outside, okay? And even if you if you did something terribly wrong, you still have the space and safety to just go wide with your car, and control your car back again. And obviously, normally, especially on race, drivers, if you tell them, there are no limits, do whatever you want, all the drivers will go as wide as possible here. But once again, they have put those markers over here. They're even in a, oblique line like that. So what you need to do, once more, is you need to get behind the curb before those lines here, before those markers. So you can abuse the track limits here, but once you're finished, you really need to get back into it like that, okay? So this is what you have to do. We will do some laps later on to, understand this turn better. It is one of those turns that, I mean, it's not that dangerous, obviously, in sim racing, but it can be frustrating because if you don't understand that you need to change your driving style, then you can end up, spinning and spinning again on this turn, and you might want to, change the setup of the car just for this turn, and then you will ruin your setup and the balance of the car all around this very technical circuit. So as I said before, you arrive quite fast here, and you really have to go, at least I do this way, because honestly, I don't know how to do it differently. I start to turn in even before I start to brake for this turn. So I won't stay outside, but I will start going into the turn a little bit before, and I will start braking just before the end of the curb at my left. This is the left. So I start braking just before the end of the curb at my left. You need to downshift down to third gear with the Godzilla, and you need to trail brake as much as possible. This is a very, very hard turn. You need to trail brake, and by trail braking I mean tiny little bit of braking here is all you need. You don't have to overdo it. Many people feel the understeer, they try to brake more, they get even more understeer, or they brake less and then the car starts to rotate too much. It's really is a dance of balance that you need to maintain with the car into the entry and also the continuation of this turn. It's really, really a very hard turn. I cannot really give you any tricks or tips about this turn. The only thing I can tell you is, brake hard at the very first part and go inside the turn trying to get the curb here, and then just before going over the curb, start to modulate your braking and keep on braking. Don't release it. Keep on braking, but modulate this. And I get a little bit of a curb to help me rotate the car with the Nissan, because obviously it wants to go straight. It's really easy here to do two kind of mistakes. Either you brake too much and you end up wide because of the understeer, or you brake too little. It helps you rotate the car, but the car rotates too much. You get some oversteer, and you think that you can keep the car in that oversteer condition, okay? But this is a tricky turn. This is what happens. So let me show you here. So from the inside, you think that the turn is getting wider and you have some straight, okay? But as you can see, this thing never straightens up. This is not a straight, really. This is really, it's nothing. It's this part here it's not straight enough, okay? You keep on turning, okay? And at some point you think that you are rotating the car properly, but you have rotated the car way too much, and you end up wide here, and you invalidate your lap because of oversteer. Because the car oversteers, you keep on counter steering, okay, because you want to keep the car into that kind of slight oversteer, which is, beneficial for going inside the turn, but you need to counter steer way too much, and the turn starts to turn even more, Instead of widening out, it becomes more narrow, and you need to turn even more. And because you're counter steering, you cannot really go into the turn, and you end up wide while counter steering, which is really, really terrible. So practically, you want to keep your car by not going too wide. You don't want to end up here too soon. You want to keep your car inside here. Even if you counter steer, you still want to keep your car inside here. And once you see that you're about to, go into this last part of the turn, the second part of the turn. Then you can maybe go a little bit straight and tap the brakes a little bit harder and go into that. You don't need to brake too much. By the time you arrive here, you have already scrubbed way too much speed. So you don't need to brake a lot. What you need to do, if depending on the car, but usually with all the cars it's like this, you need to work a little bit with your accelerator, up and down, up and down. If you feel that the car goes a little bit too wide because of the understeer, you need to play a little bit with your accelerator, and you will notice that the front end will turn in, and you will be able to make the turn much better. If you stay on the brakes, usually you get some extra understeer. If you release the brakes and play a little bit with the accelerator, you'll see that the front end gets in much better. And once you are even before the apex here, you will be here at third gear, at least with the Nissan. Go hard on the accelerator and be careful. Again, once more, you really need to keep the car in balance. So a little bit of oversteer, but not too much. If you don't have oversteer, if you instantly correct the car and you don't get a little bit of rotation, then you're gonna end up very wide here. Okay. As you can see, the road also goes uphill again, so you're gonna end up wide. If you get too much oversteer, then you will be forced to correct. The traction control again will kick in, and it will slow your exit. So again, this is all about experience and playing with the balance of the car. You need to play with the balance of the car, rotate it, but not too much. Keep it into a decent rotation, a little bit of oversteer, but not too much. Playing with the preload setting of the differential here can help you to rotate the car properly and still maintain control. So if the car rotates too much, okay, and you are on flat out on the accelerator and you cannot control it, then lower your preload setting. If the car doesn't rotate too much and you have too much of understeer while flat out, then get your preload setting higher. Okay, that's an indication of how you can do it. Okay, so let's go on. Now here is, as I said, it's really tricky to stay on a balanced car that rotates just the right amount, because otherwise you're going to end up wide here. And if you end up wide here, it's very easy to get your lap invalidated. You don't want to go over the curb, okay? So just try to stay inside and not go too much over the curb. Now, next turn. Again, one of those very difficult Paul Ricard turns. You have to trail brake a lot. The turn gets even narrower towards the exit. Strange stuff. So let's go and have a look from the top to understand what's going on. So as you can see, this is another turn that let me fix it like this. So this is another turn that, as you can see, it starts normal turn and then it gets a slower turn. So you need to do something like that, okay? It's really very tricky. So let's see how we can do this from the inside. So you don't want to go too much wide. You want to end up somewhere in the middle of the road here, and when this left curb ends and before the start of the curb again, somewhere around here, you want to start braking, okay? The initial braking, you need to brake as hard as possible at the initial braking and as less steering input as possible, Okay, so don't start steering already, because you won't be able to scrub enough speed while braking. Okay, so you want to brake with as straight as possible and with as less steering wheel as possible. After this, once you are somewhere close to the end of this blue line here, and also on the other part, the curb started, because as you can see it starts somewhere around here, you need to start to modulate your braking. If you feel the car understeering, you need to release the brakes even more. So your indication is the understeer here. You don't need to brake a lot because the turn is quite long, but you need to brake enough to obviously make the turn. But again, if you feel that you're understeering and you feel vibrations of the wheel, is because the ABS is engaging way too much. You can also hear the ABS engaging. So try to modulate your braking pressure as low as possible, so that the ABS does not kick in as much so that it makes the car understeer. So vibrations, ABS kicking in also in the audio, and understeer are your indications that you need to modulate your braking here. And you will notice that the more you modulate, the more the car rotates, right? So it's very, very important. So you will end up somewhere around here in second gear. Okay, now again, once more, sorry, let me show you. As you can see, there is a cone here, but most importantly, it's like the side limit of the road starts again. So once you are over this side road, this is where you need to go down like to second gear, start turning more and release the brakes as much as possible, or either completely release the brakes, because otherwise you won't be able to close the turn. This is the point where you really need to start closing the turn. Okay, now there is something that can help you at first, but then you have to change it. Okay, so let me show you a little trick that can help you, but it's not the correct line because it will unbalance your car a bit too much. So here's what's going on here. So if you start going into this turn, you could go inside over the curb, okay, right at this point. So as you can see, the curb here is completely smooth. And at this point, the curb goes up and becomes, it has steps. You can see that the curb goes up here, right? Now, what you want to achieve, possibly, is that you have a line that brings your front inner wheel over that curb right at the point where it steps up. Okay, this is an indication for you to understand how to close the turn. If your front goes up like this and you are somewhere around here, so you've managed to put the car inside here, this is a first good indication that you're doing it almost right. That helps you, but it's not the correct line. So be very careful on that. So this line here, placing your front left tire over the curb just when the curb goes up, is a good indication that you are doing it almost right, but it's not the correct line. The correct line is to be able to arrive here later, once you are more trained, okay, but not going over the curb. So you want to arrive here and start accelerating, rotating the car, but just touching the curb like this, okay? Why is that? Well, sometimes you cannot help it, you will go over the curb, no big deal, but you will notice that going over the curb does make the car jump a lot, and that unsettles the car a little bit. Again, it's no big deal, but it loses you some time. Instead, if you do it properly and you just be here like this, you can go very hard on the accelerator, rotate the car with the accelerator, and the car still remains stable. It doesn't bounces from the curb. Once again, as you can see, we have those markers here. So that's an indication that you cannot cut the turn, you cannot go over them at all, because once you go over them, you instantly get a penalty or an invalidation of your lap time. So you need to get over here. You can arrive wide on the curb, but just don't go over the curb. Now, once you have finally arrived over the curb, get off the curb as soon as possible. Why is that? Because you are sliding laterally, you are accelerating, so you're also spinning a little bit, and as you can see, this curb once more seems flat, but it is stepped. So it will make the traction control kick in. So once you have arrived over there, just get out of it and stay close to the curb, yes, but not over the curb. Don't stay over the curb, because it will slow you down while you're accelerating. All right? Okay. Now, let's go to another identical turn as the one before, okay, in terms of how you need to approach it, but with a little bit of different problems, let's say. So, another thing I want to tell you about this flat-out right-hander here. Obviously, normally, if the track is dry, you need to stay as close to the white line as possible to make less distance, right? But if it rains, and if it rains a lot, then I highly advise you to stay somewhere around here. Okay? Why is that? Because once this turn ends and there is some sort of straight line going from here to the next turn, somewhere around here at the end of this curb, we have a quite nasty puddle forming when it rains really hard. And what happens is that you get this puddle exactly at the braking zone. And usually, if you are staying very, very to the right hand of the road, you get the water puddle with your right tires, while your left tires are still on wet but not on the puddle, because it is just happens into this place. And if you brake, even if you have your steering wheel straight, practically you will have no grip from one side of the road and grip from the other side of the road, and your car will instantly rotate and go into an instant spin, and you will be like, what the heck, what has happened, right? So you don't want to do that. When it rains, try to stay a little bit on the middle of the road, and that will save you. Okay, so as I said, normally on the dry track, you are somewhere around here, and you want to point your car on this very, very early apex on the start of the next turn. Okay, why is that? Because this will permit you, as soon as you go over, you see here, the curb ends here. The curb ends. This is your reference braking point. Okay, so you want to place your car in a straight line, like this. You want to go here, straight line almost. Okay, so straight line like that. And brake, obviously, in a straight line. So, hard braking in a straight line, like this, okay? Just before, and as you can see again, the curb has many skid marks over it. You need to go over it. And just before going over the curb here, you start turning a little bit to the left and start modulating your braking force. Okay, once again, modulate. Some people prefer to go a little bit wider to the middle of the road. Okay, I prefer to stay a little bit inside. I think it helps me make the turn better, but it depends again on your car and your setup and your driving style. What you need to do once more is arrive somewhere around here. You will find markers again, and you want to start turning even more, okay, you want to have finished your braking zone by now, and you can go over the accelerator that will help you rotate the car. And it doesn't matter even if you go a little bit on the in oversteer here, because you will go over the curb like this, and again you can see tire markers over here. This will help rotate the car even more. No worries if you are going into a bit of oversteer, you can handle it. Just stay as much on the left side as possible. Okay, don't go to the middle of the road. Sometimes you end up there. It's also good for defending, sometimes if you're into the race. But if you want a fast lap, you want to arrive somewhere here. And once again, you have markers on the side. I start braking just before this one. Okay, brake very, very hard. And you can brake straight going outside again, first or second gear, depending on your car, and into probably the slowest turn of the circuit. Now, this turn again is very important. You need to accelerate as soon as possible because it is the last turn of the track, and then after that follows the straight line finish. At the end of the straight line finish, the start-finish straight line, we have another overtaking braking zone. So you need to have good exit speed from this turn. Again, it depends on the car. This curb over here is quite tall, as you can see. And not only tall, it is tall like this, but it's almost, like a smoothed out road, walk road like that. So going over that, you can do it, but the car bounces, it jumps. Some cars jump more than others, so you can do it with some cars. Some cars, you better, just go like this, just, touch it. It helps you rotate a little bit, exit as fast as you can. Once again, don't go outside here. It will invalidate your lap or you will get penalty. Again, the yellow lines here are very important. Just try to stay with your car over here. Don't overdo it. And this practically completes a lap at Paul Ricard. Last advice I can give you, be careful on the race. Some people will need to go into the pit lane, and usually, they might do that by just completely cutting over here. So, just be careful. If you need to do it, put your indicator like this, help people understand that you're going to go over to the pit lane. Another thing that you need to know is that the pit lane is exactly here. The pit lane limiter is exactly here. So you really need to start braking while still on the straight line. Proper doing it means that you will go slow on the last turn and you will get a much more internal line and you will stay somewhere around here, okay? And that will help people understand that you're gonna go into the pit lane, and also you will be able to brake sooner and not give a heart attack to the guy behind you that follows you flat out at the exit of the last turn. So yeah, don't do that. Just stay a bit closer. You're gonna lose, I don't know, 1/10 of a second. Who cares? Just do it like that. All right. So that was a circuit walk at Paul Ricard, and let's have some fun, right? Let's take a break and try to do some laps. You see how it jumped over there? We lost so much time, but we are down to 56.5. I'll take it. Slipstreams? No, they're not identical from car to car. Depends on the car and on the car that's in front of you. So it's really very dynamic, very different. I went too wide here, lost some time. Alessandro, sto usando il Godzilla, la Nissan GTR. Just lost it a little bit at the entry, but I didn't lose too much time at least. Again, woohoo. That was better. Right, 56.1. Pressures are not that bad. So let's see if we can fix some stuff.